So welcome back to Exponential 201, and we're in Module 2, Lesson 2, and we're talking about the Fantastic Four. These are four practices, four habits that you're going to have to learn really, really well. All exponential churches do these like second nature. So Lesson 2 here is epic events for 13-year-olds. So the whole idea, it's called Project 13, is because 13-year-olds are way more likely than probably anybody else of any age group to come to Christ. Let me explain. So 13-year-olds, a lot of youth ministry has been spent on 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Hey, they're the cool kids. If we can reach them for Christ, they'll influence everybody else. We spend all this energy trying to catch kids that don't want to get caught. Parents are forcing them to come to church. They don't want to be there. Youth pastors, juggling with fire and with knives and hey, I'll shave my hair if you come, blah blah blah, and they don't want to get caught. They want to be cool. 13-year-olds, however, want to get caught. There's something about this global kind of a culture all around the world where a 13-year-old knows I'm not an adult yet, but I'm not a kid anymore. What am I? I have more say-so over my time, over my money, over my beliefs. And so it's sort of the bar mitzvah age, right? Where you kind of become a man, you affirm your own faith, you get christened, all of those kinds of things. And so it's our opportunity to go after them. Remember the whole metaphor? If I could show you the part of the river where 90% of the fish are always caught, wouldn't you always go there? So epic events for 13-year-olds are designed to go after the 13-year-olds. So we're going to talk about how to find those 13-year-olds in your footprint and what is your footprint and how to go after them. Okay, so I've done a lot of big events for like 3 decades. You can see one of them here. I think that was in San Francisco with 25,000 young people there. That's the altar call right there where thousands are down committing their lives to Christ. And so there's some principles that make epic events really epic, that make them fantastic. Let me go over some of them here. First of all, they're bigger than life. So it's not like, hey, come to youth group, we have like 10 people, woo. Like, even if you only have 10 people right now, that's okay. But you're going to do an epic event for the 13-year-olds in your city. So, for example, I was coming alongside Gateway Church in Dallas, Texas. They've got 6 campuses, and we got them to do some research on how many 13-year-olds are in their footprint. That is, of all the schools that are represented near their 6 campuses, how many 13-year-olds are in their schools. They came back with the research. 115,000 13-year-olds are in their footprint. So you can figure out how many 13-year-olds are in your footprint. You know, how many schools, how many junior highs. You might want to go 12 to 14-year-old. That's okay. We're just aiming kind of at the 13-year-old audience. And then you plan an event. And if you've got maybe 10,000 13-year-olds, say, hey, we want 3,000 of them in our building, or we're going to rent a building and have it there, rent the school auditorium, have it there. During COVID, you can do a epic event online for young people, right? Say we want 3,000 people, 13-year-olds online for this epic event. And you build anticipation for it. One way to get 13-year-olds there is give something away, something stupid, some video game thing, some PlayStation thing. If you want to get really wild, find a car dealer in town that's a Christian and see if they'll give away a used car. Any 13-year-old, if you show up, if they'll want to win a car, right? Like, just do something crazy that gets them in the building or online to your event. Okay, of course, you wait till the end of the event to give whatever away. We'll talk about that more later about what to do during these things. And so it's bigger than life. You build anticipation. We'll talk about how to do that, and both in the young people and in the community and in the church. And then you build faith for it by corporate faith stories, people that got changed, and lives that were changed as after you have your first one. So we're encouraging everybody who's implementing Project 13 to do 2 epic events a year for 13-year-olds. Just 13-year-olds, only do 2 a year. You only need to do 2. Bigger than life events. We'll talk about what time of year and that kind of thing. We'll be able to plan it out on the exponential blueprint that we've given you. In further lessons, we'll show you how to use that and how to plan them out. But I remember this quote by Pastor Jacob Bourgois, who he said he was really a great youth pastor, and he had grown his youth group, and he had many white kids, many African American kids, all of that coming to the Lord, getting on fire. But this one guy, about 15 years old, he could not get through to. And his mom had brought him in, and soon after Jacob had become the youth pastor in New Jersey, about a month after, and said, basically, you need to fix him. I'm a single mother, and he's rebelling, and you got to fix him. And Jacob's like, okay, I'll do my best. So she made sure that her son was there every week and sitting on the front row or sitting there, and he wouldn't listen to Jacob, wouldn't do anything. Well, he ended up coming, brought his whole youth group to one of our big events, had like 13,000 people there, and he brought this young man, and the mom made sure he was there, and he didn't see him though because he had like 200 youth at the event. He had lots of leaders and that kind of thing. Anyways, the story goes like this. After the next week, after the event was over, this kid comes to his office on his own free will, brings all of his secular CDs, throws them on his desk, says, "Okay, I'm done." He goes, "What are you talking about?" He goes, I'm done with all these. Now, please note, we didn't talk anything about secular music, get rid of secular, nothing like that at the event, right? But the Lord had convicted him. And he goes, "Well, what happened?" The young man said, "I got my life right with God. God totally changed my life, and I want this stuff out of my life." And what Jacob said to me was this: I had done everything I knew to get through to this kid, but something happened when we brought them to your event. God broke through. So I think there's a spiritual principle here, and that is this. Jesus had a crowd, and he created an atmosphere of faith. He taught, he built their faith. He taught, he built their faith, and he did miracles. Something happens when you do an epic event. It's not just, "Ooh, this is cool, this is wild." You're creating an environment where people can have faith. And so if you get 500 youth there and you've never had a 500 youth gathering in your church or in your city ever, or 1,000 youth or 3,000 or 5,000, whatever it is, and you create the next 90 minutes of you're taking them on a journey that like it's like going to Disney World for them because they've never tasted something really authentic and powerful with the presence of God before. And so with the worship and with the communication, we'll talk all about how to do that. But when you do that, you create an environment of faith where, like for this kid, he was just like that. It created an environment where he felt safe. He felt like he could open up his heart and give his life to the Lord. So you set the tone with the opening. Let me just walk through some of the things that happen. With the opening of a big epic event, it's exciting. We actually used to use pyrotechnics at our events. We called them Acquire the Fire. We'd always start with pyrotechnics going off. You don't have to do that though. But there's fun, there's laughing. The young people are looking at the first few minutes at the first like 10 seconds, the first 30 seconds, the first 2 minutes. Am I going to like this event? Is this going to be fun? Should I pay attention? So it's very important what you do right at the very beginning. If you laugh, you get them laughing, little endorphins going. Someone's going to win a big prize by the end of the night. Of course, the most important thing is God in the house, and with your communication, with your worship, and with your ministry moments. So you want to have some great worship. I would encourage you to have a youth band. If you don't have one, maybe start working on one that can play at the at least play a couple of songs, maybe not all the worship, but play a couple of songs at the epic event for 13-year-olds. We're talking about having great worship, very meaningful ministry times. So it's loud, it's funny, it's interesting, creative, interactive, whether you're using slides like I'm doing here, or video clips, or live interaction with the crowd, things like that. But it's really important is not just pick a topic from the Bible and speak about it, but also remember, deal with an issue that everyone can relate to, whether that's loneliness or family issues or music or the internet, how their impact on their life and that kind of thing. Something that's a felt need, and because you're going to immediately connect with them if they know that you know something about what they're going through, and they're going to get some help with that on that evening. Okay, so I would encourage you to think more, maybe creatively, about how you, when you get to the message part of the evening, think maybe a little bit different, because how you communicate to this young generation is just a little different. For example, you could start with a question. I know some youth ministries are doing this. Ask a question that's like a cliffhanger, maybe at the beginning of the message, maybe at the beginning of the night. Say, hey, we're going to get into music in just a few minutes. It's going to be really exciting. And then start to tell a story and leave with a cliffhanger, or ask a question that's a cliffhanger. Like, what would you do if someone told you that they thought they might die next week? And then Then you stop, say break up into some groups. And of course, you got your Connect group leaders already trained. We'll talk about that. And talk about that question. What would you say to them? Well, how would you counsel them? What would you say to encourage them? What do you think they might be feeling? So ultimately, you take that question and you weave it back into your message. You help answer that question during your message. But what it is, you don't answer that question for them. Leave it as a question and get them discussing it, right? They want to discuss. But if you tell them, and don't leave them, and don't have a question that leave it open-ended so they can discuss, they won't. Break them into small groups, and then have the Connect group leaders lead those discussions. Let me just say another thing about these epic events. How you present Christ is very, very important. See, we all think we know how because we have heard people do it, and most of us just do what we've seen. Even if you've been to seminary, we still just do what we've seen, not based on theology that we've learned. Now, I'm going to get a little bit deeper, but I want you to go with me now. The event that you saw, some of those pictures, I've done hundreds and hundreds of those, right? Like stadiums filled, arenas filled, living rooms filled with young people. That's how we started. And I started thinking really deeply somewhere maybe 20 years ago. How is it that I really present Christ? Because whatever we say when they lift their hand, what they think they're responding to, we are responsible for that. And I took it really, very seriously. And so I would encourage you, we use this phraseology that I think when you look at the data, barring on everybody else, people who are Christians, people who are not, how much they lie, cheat, steal, get divorced, it's almost the same as non-Christians. Like you almost can't tell the difference, secular and Christian. And you wonder why. Well, I wonder if it's because we've got sort of a passive kind of faith. I prayed, I gave my heart to the Lord, whatever, and I just kind of go to church if you beg me enough. And so a passive faith produces a passive Christian. Our words really matter. So you've heard this phraseology, would you like to accept Christ? And people raise their hand, people pray, and they cry. But the word accepting Christ, the phrase, is really, it's never in the Bible. And you can get there theologically if you think, would you accept the fact that Jesus paid the sacrifice on the cross for you so you don't have to? Yes. But the problem is, most people that don't know anything about the Lord don't think like that. They think accept Visa, accept MasterCard, accept Christ. They think they're doing Christ, a favor. Like, would you accept my friend Joe? He doesn't have a good self-esteem. He needs a friend. Would you accept Christ? He needs another friend. We think we're doing Jesus a favor. And it's a passive word, accepting, rather than what Jesus talked about 32 times in the Gospels. Whenever he was talking about getting connected between a human and the Father, he said, follow me. Follow me, follow me, follow me, 32 different times. I'll make you fishers of men. Follow me, take up your cross, and follow me over and over again. Following is an active word, all right? There's one time it says those who receive him, he gives right, become sons of God. And the receive, the way we think about it in English, is a passive word. But in that Greek word for receive means to grab a hold of like a bulldog and never let go. It's actually an active word. So how you present the gospel, every time you present it, like I stopped ever asking people to become Christians. I didn't ask them to become accepting Christ or to receive Christ. I want them to, in their mind, I think how they come is how they stay. If you have to beg them to accept Christ, you have to beg them to come to church, beg them to read their Bible, beg them to stay holy, beg them to give in the offering, beg, because they came under the premise of begging. But if you say, this is what it means to be a follower of Christ, he wants you to follow him. This is what happens. You get born again. He changes your heart. But becoming a follower means X, Y, and Z. So how you present it, you build on that in the discipleship process. A lot of times people have accepted Christ, but then you say, hey, why don't you read your Bible? No, I didn't sign up for that. I signed up for all you have to do version. All you have to do is pray this prayer and you'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. It sounds like an auction sometimes. And so following Christ is very, very important, because following Christ means you're a learner, you're a disciple, you're following his lifestyle. And we'll talk more about what that means as we get into the discipleship. But you'll build on this in the follow-up pathway tools, the part that's really sticky, you'll build on. If they became a follower, then you fill in the blank. This is what this means. This is what we want you to do to continue following Christ. And so the question is then we ask them tonight, if you're ready to take the first step, you're becoming a follower. But the very first step, taking a follow, you're walking away from that path. You're choosing to follow Christ. When you take the first step, yes, you get born again. You get a brand new heart. You're forgiven in a moment. But there's a whole bunch more steps in front of you. There's a whole pathway that he wants you to follow. And so you're helping them become a follower of Christ. Now, let's talk about the ministry moment of this epic. And as you can imagine, I've got a lot that I can say about all of these events. And I want you all to understand this, because all around the table, even though maybe you're not fully responsible, you're the one responsible for the epic event, I want you to understand these are not just teenage rah-rah things, real potent ministry. I always look at the ministry moment, that is when people give their life to Christ and become followers of Christ. And I like that better than, say, giving your life to Christ, or I'll say giving your life to become a follower of Christ. Like a bullfighter. And maybe it's not a good metaphor, I don't know. But like, if you're to see yourself, if you're the preacher, you're the bullfighter, and well, you're really not the bullfighter. The bull is him. The bull is the young person, right? And you are actually the tarp, the red tarp. And what you're doing is you're waving that out in front of them, and at the last moment, you're jerking that out of the way, so when they come forward or they connect with the Lord, they repeat a prayer, but they're connecting with God, it's like, bam, they just run right into the Lord, right? And if they really have an encounter like that, really and truly, they'll never be the same. So I want to take you live into one of our events that we did a few years ago. Actually, it takes you into several events, into the ministry moment, because I want you to feel it. I want you to see it. I want you to see that both the anointed part of it, people's lives are being changed, but also the seriousness of it. And we'll come back and close this lesson.
Every time you see a love story from now on, every time you go to a wedding, it's all supposed to remind you of the biggest love story in the world. Why? It's embedded in us. We want love. We want to discover love. God's going, good. Keep searching. You'll find me. And the cross is where we meet Jesus. It's the sign of his commitment to us, and it's our sign of commitment to him. Think about it. Stay seated for a minute. Wrestle with it. Have you contemplated? Have you really thought deeply about it? I got to give my whole life. I got to walk away from the stuff of the world. I got to quit dating other stuff that's distracting me from God. Count the cost. And when you're ready to surrender, just as if you just found the answer to all of your dreams, jump to your feet and scream as loud as you can, I want the cross! And that is your moment of covenant with God. I'm yours. Hold your applause. I believe there's still people that are still wrestling tonight. You're listening to others and you're going, oh, I'm just so close. Listen, you wrestle. Think about what you're walking away from. if you still need to make your declaration. Those of you that are standing, you've made your declaration. Would you find your way out of your seat? And as you walk out of your seat, leave your old self there. You're leaving it behind. And come and kneel at the foot right here of this cross. Let's lay our lives down tonight. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? Oh, sing how great is our God. Come on, let it ring in this place. Let's rip our hearts wide open and sing it. How great is our God? I love you, Lord. Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will sing how great is our God.
So you can see it's very moving when you have an authentic ministry moment happening at one of these epic events. And it's not epic because it's cool and wild. I like to say, when you go to Disneyland and you see that little thing moving there, look how they shape the bushes, and that's all eye candy, and you remember all these experiences. Well, everything you do throughout the whole night, you're giving them eye candy, or like that video or that drama or that funny little thing. It might seem just funny, but it reminds them of a principle, part of the message, a scripture. You're giving lots of things, visual things to remember. And so then, but you're being very intentional with all of those things that create this just a beautiful ministry moment. Some of the logistical things you're going to want to remember, that you've got your connect groups and your connect group leaders all trained and prepared. We'll talk about that, to prepare to launch at the first epic 13-year-old meeting. Okay, so you've got them, they've been meeting, they've been trained, and they're ready to meet people at the altar. Once you have that altar ministry time, you've got your epic group leaders. You dismiss everybody who came to the altar, along with the connect group leaders, have them lift their hand, or they all wear a special hat, or they wear something, they put their hat on at that point, and they go out of the meeting, the main room, into another room you've got, and they all form groups of like 5 or 7 people in a group, right? And at this point, they're just random groups, right? You can't assign who is who at that moment, but do them. A female leader is going to get 5 or 10 females, and same with guys, right? Sit them in a group, and you'll have some tools for them. Get to know each other's name, begin to get to know each other. And talk about, hey, we're really excited, this commitment you've made to the Lord. I'm a connect group leader here. You might be in my group. I really hope you are. We're gonna meet. We're starting next week. And you already have this meeting set up. You set up for them to come 30 minutes in advance of the main meeting, or 45 minutes in advance if you want. So you have a little time for to assimilate into groups. And by that time, you'll have them in their group. You ought to have them in the group that they're assigned to by the next day, so the real connect group leader can call them and say, hey, we're looking forward to you coming this next week. It takes a lot of energy at first to get them from visiting and making a commitment to say, now we're coming next week. And so you want to make sure that these guys, these connect group leaders, when they're dismissed in a small group, they give them something that invites them to come next week and the time to be there. Looking forward to it. Make sure you get all their name and contact information while they're there, and in the small group. And so it feels like there's really a connection, that they weren't just part of a mob that came forward, but they're looked at in the eyes, they're cared for, and then you pray for, have the connect group leader pray for them. So grateful to God for them. And I want to just pause here. The video, this lesson's about to end, but ask you guys to discuss this during this break. Describe one of the most amazing youth events you ever attended when you were young, and why was it amazing? Discuss the impact of words, accept Christ versus becoming a follower of Christ, and what might be the difference in the mind of the person responding. Okay, and then we'll see you at the next lesson.